Hello and welcome to the Form a Day Challenge. My name is Kareem Cooperhouse, and every day for 30 days, I am showcasing a form that we've automated using the Clever platform. Today is day 2, where I am showcasing a facilities rental or a building use rental form. And this is a popular form with smaller districts. Some larger districts will often purchase a system just to manage this. They'll purchase a software system to do that. The smaller districts certainly can't afford to do that. And really, even for larger districts, it doesn't make sense to use a separate platform when they can simply leverage the Clever platform in order to build their building use form. And so what you're looking at here is the original paper-based form of the district. And as you can see, it's a traditional paper-based form. It's probably very similar to something that you're already using at your district. And the process was a community organization would show up at the front desk of the school district and ask for this form. They'd go back, complete it, bring it back to the secretary. And then this would sort of work its way through the workflow of the district. In this particular case, it will usually end up on the desk of the buildings and grounds manager, and he or she would make sure that the whatever facility that was being requested was available on that particular date. If so, it would get sent up to finance so that finance can determine what the costs were in order to rent the facilities. And then it would move up to the superintendent. The superintendent would then approve it. And then the secretary would then take over and then contact the organization and so on and so forth. So this was a really timely process. But the real challenge was behind a process that involved a certificate of insurance. The district was audited, and it turns out that the auditors realized that a lot of times when the facilities were being rented out, a certificate of insurance was not being collected by the school district. And so they wanted to make sure that that process of collecting a certificate of insurance was part of the workflow. So let's look at how we did that. So here we are logged into the Clever platform. I'll scroll down to that particular form. Here it is, the building use form. So a community organization would have access to the Clever platform. They'd have a username and password where they'd be able to log in, choose whatever school that they want to, wherever they'd want to rent some facilities. They'd be provided here with some instructions. And you'll notice that we've broken up the form into multiple tabs to reflect the way the form was created over here with all these different sections. And so if I come back over here, you can see that the instructions are on the first tab. And it's very clear in bold, in red, that their request has to be accompanied by a certificate of insurance. So the organization comes in, fills in whatever information they deem necessary here, the name of the organization, their address, who is responsible. If they want to add a second person, they click the add button. Will there be someone present who is certified with AEDs? If so, who is that person? So we have some show hide functionality here. And this is important because if you're filling out this form on a tablet or a smartphone, you don't want to have any unnecessary sections to have to scroll through. So I could add a second person again if I wanted to detail the type and purpose of the meetings or the reason for the rentals, the size of the groups. And then I come over to the next facility, to the next tab, where I can indicate what area do I want to rent. So maybe it's the high school gym, maybe it's the multimedia room, maybe it's a specific classroom. If so, I would just put in the number of the classroom. And then I could scroll down. And then because we're logged in as a super administrator here, we're seeing the athletic directors or the building and grounds approval process here, but this would not show up for the organization. They could choose whether they wanted some special equipment. And then as I go to the next tab, again, we have some show hide facility functionality here. So if I plan on, or the organization plans on serving or selling food, then they would click yes. If yes, there's a whole menu that appears here where they have to indicate what they plan on using, any other equipment. And there's some disclaimer here about guidelines in order to sell or serve food. And there's a disclaimer that they have to sign off as well. And then, of course, because they have signed in, we are able to authenticate them and apply their e-signature. The next tab here is about the facility use charge. And the facility use charge is really about determining how much is it going to cost to rent the facilities. So as I go through here, I would indicate the dates. And of course, we'd be able to determine whether or not the facilities had already been rented for this date. So an error message will show up if they are renting or choosing some dates that have already been picked. They put in their time. And whoops, let's try that again. AM, and then maybe just until 4 p.m. And then so on and so forth. They'd indicate how many hours they plan on using it, and we'd have an auto calculator. And so this is information that would be provided to the finance manager. Once it's been completed, the form comes to the finalization stage, and here's where the organization has to upload their certificate. And once they upload their certificate, then they'll be able to submit to the manager of building and grounds their request. So they come over here, pick their certificate, right? It's uploaded. Then they can click on this and on the submit button, and then they can send a notification and it gets timestamped. Now the buildings and grounds manager gets a notification. He or she can then follow up, come into the system, review the application, and then send it over for approval to the superintendent. And once that gets done, at that point, it can go to the finance manager in order to issue an invoice accordingly. So this is how this particular district has been able to automate a process that was paper-based and very manual in terms of a workflow. So I hope you enjoyed this view or this showcasing of a facilities use or building use form. Stay tuned for the next form tomorrow.